Hey guys, before I begin, I want to describe a little bit about what this is about. My name's Trevor. I'm an addict. I've been in recovery now for 6.5 years, and I've had this undying urge, just to that someone needed help, and I kind of reached out a little bit on Facebook and said if anyone needs any help, I'm here. But it hasn't gone away. This feeling has not gone away, and I used to go to school in Appleton, about an hour and a half from where I live now, and on my way there, I would listen to recordings of speakers, recovery speakers, and it was always kind of a process trying to find something that I could get to easily. So lately, it kind of came to me that I should just start a YouTube channel, and correlating Facebook, Twitter, Instagram pages to get the message out. Not only spread my story, but to spread other stories. And that's kind of where this all came from. So I'm going to take a second here and I'll begin. Okay, so to kind of get to my life, I'm gonna start with my parents. My dad, he was in the military. He was in the Vietnam War. Because of that, he was paralyzed from the waist down. But that didn't stop him from achieving anything. He rolled into a room and commanded attention. He had very good personality and was very charismatic and was really proud of his last name and who he was and what he had made for himself. Through his government, I guess it'd be pension, I'm not even sure, but he was able to start owning a lot of properties and renting them out, and he became really successful at that. We always had money, we always had food, and I always had four-wheelers and dirt bikes and snowmobiles, and along with my brother. So he did really well for himself. We had a house out on the Menominee River, beautiful area, and as far as my mom is, this beautiful woman that is very caring and motherly, and she never gave up. Probably did more than she should have for me. Sometimes you kind of gotta let go from an addict, but she never gave up. She always made sure there was dinner available for me, and I always had a place to go, and I'm very grateful for that. I'm very grateful for my father too. Growing up, I guess I'd say it was a normal childhood. We went on vacations. I fished a lot since we were right on the river. Those were like my hobbies. Riding dirt bikes was very much my thing. Somewhere, maybe I was 5, 7 years old, I'm not even certain, but my mom and my dad got a divorce. It was not a great time. There was a lot of fighting, yelling, screaming, stuff breaking. There was some very bad circumstances from time to time. Now kids are resilient, and I was I was resilient. I was still happy. I wasn't really a bad kid. I was pretty well behaved, um, and I I eventually started going back and forth between my mom's house and my dad's house. And mainly I lived with my dad. He was self-employed, but he was home all the time. He was able to be there, and my mom had to work. My mom worked as a bartender mostly. Um, she had some other jobs here and there, but mainly a bartender. So life was pretty tight when we went to her house. We still had a nice place to stay. We had, good clothing and awesome dinners. I always liked going to my mom's house because she was a better cook than my dad. But as I got older, I kind of realized that if I got in a fight with my dad, I could go with my mom for a little while, and vice versa. So somewhere around middle school, I was living with my dad, and we had a disagreement, so I was gonna have it my way, and I moved in with my mom. I moved in with my mom around 8th grade, 7th, 8th grade. I kind of went back and forth for 6 to 8 months, but when I went to live with my mom, she had moved to Peshtigo. I went to Peshtigo school. I started hanging out with skateboarders. I got really into skateboarding, and they were the friends that took me in. They were there for me. Since my mom worked a lot, basically from late afternoon until 3 in the morning, 2, 3 in the morning, my mom wasn't there. My stepdad was, but some days he'd be working out of town, and he'd be gone for the evening. But yeah, so I could basically do whatever we want. So it started out with us causing trouble. The skateboarders in Peshtigo were the outcasts, I guess you could say. Small country town that we caused trouble. I remember one night we went and saw how many buildings we could climb on. We ended up taking some banners from a local business, and we got caught for it. And it just progressed. What could I get away with? So then we started stealing 40s from the local gas station, and getting drunk behind a semi-trailer close to my house. Now, I was always the one that was like, I'm never smoking, I'm never doing the pot, I'm never, gonna be like that, because I saw what it had done to, other family members in my life, and I was really against it. Well, once I started drinking, I kind of realized, that was a way to escape. I could come out of my shell. Being newly around these people, I was my friends. I was just a normal teenager where I wasn't confident in myself. Skateboarding and drinking and eventually smoking marijuana gave me that confidence that I lacked. I also realized that I could cover up the trauma. Now, about this time, my dad started having health issues, dealing with related to his being paralyzed. So he was in and out of the Milwaukee VA hospital, which is about 3 hours from us. So kind of going back to my dad's house, that wasn't really an option, but it also left my dad's house open. so I could have parties. And since I had went to two schools, I had a lot of friends, so-called, that who we all like to party. We grow up in a town where there's not a whole lot for kids to do besides drink. We see what our parents are doing, and they're going out to the bars. There's more bars in town than there are parks. um, so the party lifestyle was not only did it look great on the outside, but it's what we learned to do. You can have a parent telling a child not to do this, but if they're doing that same exact thing, the kid's going to do what what they see, not what they are told. I learned that at a pretty early age, that you can tell me whatever you want to do, but if you do the opposite, I'm going to do the opposite. So eventually my dad's health declined enough that it was going to be the end soon. So I remember one day when I went down to visit him, me being over 16 years old now, I can drive, so I was able to go visit my dad in the hospital quite a bit. He had told me that the doctors gave him 6 months to live, and that he wanted to die at home. So we made it happen. We made it able for him to come home. We had a special bed that got set up. They were able to get in-home nursing that would come a couple times a day and change his bandages or whatever it was. But the illness that he had was getting worse and worse, and it was really hard on me. So not only I'm trying to go to school, somewhat take care of my dad. He was pretty hard to get along with. He had that military type of personality, and when he wanted something done, he wanted it done now, and he wanted it done right. And me being 16 and wanting to party all the time, that wasn't what I wanted. So we had our disagreements, but for the main part, we had a ton of really close conversations, really inspiring moments. He taught me a lot about being a man and the right things to do. He taught me that by showing me, not by telling me, and I'm really grateful for that. But seeing him basically, for lack of a better word, decay, and lose a lot of weight, and just his body start to shut down, it was toll taking. And he was on a ton of pain medicine, so to cover up those feelings that I didn't know how to deal with, being an immature teenager, I started stealing his medication from time to time, whether it was just one or whatever, but I was able to somewhat cope with it, block out what was happening, forget about it, and I could direct my attention in other places, those other places being girls, those other places being parties, friends, skateboarding. I was able to get out and kind of forget it for the time, until I went home. Now, there was a day where my dad would call all the time. He would he would call, hey, can you bring home eggs? Or hey, can you do this? He couldn't get out of the house, so he needed support from me and from my brother and anyone else who was willing to do it, which was, me and my brother, basically. So we'd call from time to time, and, in the beginning, it was fine, I'd answer. As time grew on, I selfishly would ignore his phone calls. But one particular day he was calling and calling and calling, and then my mom was calling and calling and calling, who I didn't get along with. I, didn't want to be around her at that time. I don't even know what the fight was about, but I knew that I didn't want to. And then my brother was calling me like over and over, and my dad would call, and my mom, and then brother, and over all day long. And I don't know if I was trying to find drugs at that time, or if I was at a party, or what I was doing. But eventually, I got home, and my mom met me at the door, and she's like, "Dred, it's not good. It's gonna happen soon." Now this was a year and a half after he came home from the hospital, so he had outlived what the doctors thought, which was incredible. He held on for that long. But that night, I saw him, and he said, "I love you," and I just couldn't deal with it. I went in the other room, and I cried, and shortly after, like maybe a half an hour after, my brother came in and said he's gone. That night was really, really hard for me. I regretted ignoring the phone calls. I regretted not, giving him a hug goodbye, or saying, "I love you." I did as I was going by, but it was so hard. Now, at this time, it was 8/13/2007. Before then, August 7th, 2006, I had a son with, and his mom was, me and her had a lot of difficulties throughout the younger stages, typical teenage issues that, all young relationships go through, yelling and fighting and all that stuff. But one of the things I'm grateful for is that my dad was able to not only meet my son, but hold my son and spend some time with him. So now I'm, 18, 19 years old. Just by the skin of my teeth, I graduated high school, after going through, my dad being sick. He died in 2007. I graduated in 2006. So I'm a recent graduate. I had told the college that I was going to go to that I was no longer going to be going because I was having a son. And, I tried to be a man and do, the dad thing. Eventually the fighting between my son's mother and I grew to be too much, and I blame myself, I blame her, but it was mainly the drug issues that we had. She had her own issues and I had my own issues, and it was because of that party lifestyle that we had. At this time, ecstasy was very popular. I knew some friends in Appleton, and we would go there and party and get ecstasy and come back and have ecstasy parties, and it was the lifestyle to have. I was able to, make a little bit of money to be able to do it again the next weekend. Well, eventually I realized that that could be a source of income, that the Taco Bell job that I had was not going to pay the bills, but maybe this could. And I didn't really try to be this huge drug dealer. I tried to have a lot of friends and people around me, because if I had an issue with one group of friends, I could go hang out with another group of friends. So I did that quite a bit. And, I learned that from, when my parents split up, that if I had a fight with this person, I could go hang out with this person. Eventually the ecstasy, parties grew into hallucinogens, and man, there was some bad times there. But it grew into hallucinogens, all while smoking marijuana and drinking alcohol. My addiction kept growing. I had all this pain and guilt, shame that I needed to push aside and not deal with, because I had all this other stuff going on. The kid and the kid's mother, and where am I going to live, all sorts of things. So there's a few times where I tried to go to college, but I'd I had a GI Bill, and every time maybe the second check came, by then it was like $1,000 for an 18, 19, 20-year-old kid to have who liked to party. So it was gone, and then I wouldn't go to school, or when I did go to school, I, was hungover or just wanting drugs the whole time. So eventually I stopped doing school, and, my grades reflected it. So my son's getting older. There's been relationships since being with my son's mother. Mainly just involved partying, drinking, drugs. My son was mainly with his mother at this time, but things got too much, and eventually my son and I moved in with my mother, which was probably me pulling my head out of my butt a little bit. So my mom lived in Peshtigo. I was able to try, to go to school. I was able to try and be a father while living off of my mom, and my drug addiction still was getting more and more advanced. I was very addicted to painkillers, basically anything I could get my hands on, but never heroin. I never wanted to do heroin. I knew that was bad, and a lot of people die from that. I didn't want to die. I wanted to be there for my son and try and be a father and maintain this drug lifestyle, this double life I was trying to live, but it grew worse and worse. I regretfully say that my son has been around me when I've used drugs. He has seen me high. He has been in the car with me when I was doing drugs. He he's seen some stuff that kids shouldn't have to see. He's had a rough life because of not only what I put him through, but just the flip flop, the unstable lifestyle that I was giving him. My mom and stepdad have been the most stable people in his life, and to them I owe the world. My addiction grew so bad that painkillers weren't enough anymore. Those were my drug of choice, but I would have to spend an enormous amount of money to feed my addiction. So the only option was heroin at that point. It was cheaper. I could go to the city and get it for $10, and I would be able to feel okay, because after a while the painkillers wouldn't cut it anymore. They wouldn't get me to where I wanted to be. And heroin got me there fast. It got me there cheap. And it was relatively easy to get. Yes, I had to travel 3 or 4 hours to go get it, but if I was able to get enough, I was able to support my habit for the next day and the next week. Now, I'm still living at my mom's house. She knew I was addicted, but there's no way she knew it was as bad as it was. Now, I was going to Milwaukee or Chicago, 3 or 4 hours away from where I live now, anywhere from 2 times to 4 times a week, and coming back with relatively small amounts, mainly personal, but I did what I had to do to maintain my addiction, to feel okay. I got to the point where if I didn't use drugs, I was sick. That I would, every day when I would wake up, I hated to wake up because I was so sick. And if I had a good night's sleep, it's because I had drugs in my system. Now, those were some of the worst times in my life, trying to sleep while not having drugs, or trying to find drugs. My day basically consisted of wake up, look for drugs all day long, if I had money. Now, if I didn't have money, it would be find money, find drugs. So it was like that every single day. Find drugs, find money, get high, go to sleep. Pick up my son from school, drop him off at school, and try and spend time with him. But that wasn't really what I did. My main focus was feeling better, not feeling sick. Withdrawals from heroin and opiates are worse than the coronavirus, that's for sure. So I would do that every day. Eventually, one day my mom came downstairs and she said, "Trev, the cops are here for you." So I went upstairs and they had told me that I had charges for delivery of heroin and delivery of something else. But they handed me my court date and took my car because I used it to transport drugs in. And, from there it was doom. It was impending doom. I was going to go to prison, and it was looking like a long time. So at that point in my life, I had tried to clean up. I had tried to clean up because I was scrolling through Facebook, and Marinette County Sheriff had posted pictures of heroin that they had found or whatever, but I saw one of the baggies that I had sold on the front page cover of this advertisement, and I knew I was screwed. So since then I had tried to clean up my act. I didn't know if they had gotten that from me or what had happened, but I knew when they showed up at my door. So the court proceedings started. I don't remember exactly how long after, but not too much long after. And my lawyer was a part of the drug court team that was starting. They were starting a drug court that was, going to be for addicts who had created issues. At this time in Marinette, heroin was it was an epidemic. It was absolutely terrible. Most of the people I knew had an issue with it, and the drug court was designed to be treatment for those that were filling up the local jail and prisons as a second chance. So I wanted that second chance. Not only could I avoid prison, but I could try and be there for my son. And I tried to drag out the court proceedings as long as I could until this drug court got rolling, by filing for continuances and switching judges and pretty much everything I could do to drag it out. And my lawyer kind of advised me that, if you can quit using drugs on your own, drug court's probably not for you. Because I told him I could quit drugs, but I knew in my heart that I couldn't. I had tried to quit drugs numerous times, whether it was for girls or for my son or everything. I tried so many times. I had tried to kill myself a few times. I had overdosed a few times. I hated my life. I absolutely hated my life. I did not want to live. And I had hated what I did to my son, and I figured since, I did all this to him, if I wasn't around, it would be much better. And anyway, getting back to where I was, so eventually I was able to accept and get accepted into drug court. Now I knew it was basically a second chance. My sentence was for, I hadn't been sentenced. I was in drug court on a trial period to see if I could get sentenced to drug court. So in March of 2015, I started drug court. Now, it was the early days of drug court, so everything was kind of still getting figured out. And I was able to kind of beat the system for a little bit. I was able to use drugs and pass the drug test because they're predictable at that point. I knew if I had a drug test today, I probably wouldn't have one tomorrow. So if I was able to use right after my drug test, I would be good to flush out my system by the next time I get called for another drug test. Now, this double lifestyle didn't work for very long. Eventually, I failed a drug test, and I had said, that's not accurate. I don't even use that drug. That's not something I use. So that's not, we need to send this out for lab results. And I knew that I had used that drug, that it was accurate, that I was going to fail. So it was the weekend, and I went hard. I did every drug I possibly could. And Monday, I failed my drug test for like 8 out of 13 things or something that they had tested for, maybe more, I don't recall. But I remember after the drug test, like this sad urge, this sad, not urge, but just being so sad and depressed that I fucked up, and that I was going to, go to prison for what my sentence was 4 years in and 4 years out. That I kind of knew I was accepting it. I went to one of my friend's houses at the time. I was able to get some drugs. I used those drugs as soon as I injected those drugs. I felt this wave of this impending doom, really, like I was in the middle of a quicksand pit and the world was caving in around me. I had to go to meetings because of the drug court, and I saw all these happy people that were around and who had faith in me and, wanted me to succeed and be in their recovery, and I felt like I let them all down. I let down myself. I let down my son, and I felt, guilt and shame and remorse like I've never felt before in my life. So literally after I used this drug, I started crying. I got up off my friend's couch and just left. I didn't say goodbye, nothing. And I started walking and shaking, crying. I didn't know what to do. I called the drug court coordinator, and I told on myself. I said, I don't know how to stop using. I need some help, and I don't know what to do. Now at this point, I had to attend so many meetings per week, so I didn't have a license. I messed that up a long time ago. So I'm on my skateboard and I head to a meeting. From that meeting, I couldn't tell you what happened at the meeting. I know that I was reading a book out loud, and eventually somebody had to cut me off. After the meeting, I called this guy who I had met, who had a really good message that, I wanted to be my sponsor. I called him. He came and picked me up from the meeting and was able to bring me to my mom's house. On the way, I had gotten a 30-day chip, whatever you want to call it, for 30 days clean. I had given him that back, and I said, when I have 30 days actually clean, I'd like that back. From there, I went to jail shortly after from my mother's house, or whether it was drug court, I'm not certain. I think it was after drug court that week that I went to jail. That was May 5th, 2015. I was in jail, I was in jail. eventually I was able to get out once I was able to pass the drug test. So 3 days later, May 8th, I passed the drug test, and that's when I knew that I was going to do whatever it takes to do recovery, to not have to use drugs anymore. That no matter what was going to happen, no matter what I was going to do, I wasn't going to pick up drugs again. Now, I don't know what moment it was, but somewhere from the using to getting out of jail, I had made the decision that this is not the life I want, and I'm going to choose recovery. After getting out of jail, I was staying at this, I guess you would call it assisted living for mental health type of, there's an actual name for it, but I don't want to use it. But here in town, it's a great place. I was on in this house. I was on lockdown. The only time I was allowed to leave was for counseling appointments, group therapy, and drug court. So I had a lot of assignments to do from my counselor and from my group meetings that I had to attend that were really beneficial. I had 3 groups a week, drug court, individual counseling. Every week I had to attend for I think the first week or 2 of being in this mental health. I'm just going to call it sober living because that's how it was for me. In this sober living, I had to start community service. So I was doing community service, going to these meetings, basically totaling 40 hours. Finally, I was able to go back to recovery meetings, and that was like freedom almost. I was on lockdown for so long and only attending counseling, that once I was able to do recovery meetings, I was able to, there was like freedom. I was able to walk 2 blocks to a meeting. It was wonderful. I was really grateful for those meetings. Eventually, after doing community service, I had asked to start looking for a job. I knew that I wasn't staying at this sober living forever, and I was able to get a job. I was able to get hired at a local restaurant, and my drug court coordinator one day, I had told her that I wouldn't work for less than $10 an hour. And she said, yes, you will, basically, she said. And she says, you put minimum effort in your recovery. Why would anyone pay you more than minimum wage? You're not putting maximum effort. People that put maximum effort deserve more than minimum wage. And I'll never forget that, because that was a really big turning point for me. It proved to me that if I just do the minimum, that's all I'm worth. So from then on, I started attending 5 to 7 meetings a week, recovery meetings, along with the group and individual counseling. And I really started to dig into being a part of recovery and being fully invested into it. I started community service. I started really trying to be as helpful as I possibly could. That company that I was working for community service ended up hiring me. So now I was working at the community service job, and I was working at the local restaurant, and trying to do all the normal commitments of drug court. And eventually it was, some weeks I was putting in 70 hours, and I had missed a phone call that week that I put in like 72 hours. Phone call for the drug testing line I was late for or something. And I got a little sanction for that, but I was really trying to be as thorough as I possibly could with my life and really do recovery right. I was then told that after being in the sober living house, that Friday was my last day. On a Monday, they had said Friday was my last day, and I had to leave, and I couldn't go back to my mom's house. So I had to find a place to go, and I reached out to one friend in particular who graciously took me in, and I still can't believe he did. We hadn't been close in years, but he took me in, and I'm still working the 2 jobs, still doing the drug court thing, and trying to find my own place. I wanted to be able to try and take over my friend's lease, because he was moving in with his girlfriend, and the landlord had known me, so that wasn't happening. Needless to say, and another time where I had a week to get out or so. So I go to my job, my job that had turned in, that I go to community service that had turned into a job. I go there, and I'm talking with my coworker, and I told her, what was going on, that I was having difficulty finding a place, and I was able to find something on, I think it was Craigslist, for rent that I could afford. And I talked to this lady on the phone for a brief minute, and she said she would call me back, and I was now at work, and I was like, this lady's name is this, and it was a unique name, and she says, I know her. I know there's only one person by that name. I know her. And I was like, no way. And just then, the landlord had called, and she was talking to me. I was telling her my history with that I had the felony, and that I've started a new way of life. And then my coworker kind of interrupts and says, let me talk to her. And she got me into that apartment. So now I have an apartment. I'm working those 2 jobs, and I was not taking home much money at all. When I was able to afford that apartment, I was just able to afford that apartment and very little else. There were some weeks where I didn't have food, not enough to eat anyway. I had enough to get by, but not enough to be full. So I get a call from this temp agency about a job available at a local factory, and I said, yeah, sign me up. I love it. Went and passed the drug test, and quitting my job at the community service job was really hard, because I liked it. I liked the people I worked with, and I just really liked the family environment that it was. Um, but they were really happy for me that I was able to get into um, a job that could be, enough to pay for my future. And I started working at that job, and I was hired for second shift, 2 to 10 p.m. as a temporary employee for $10 an hour. um, so all the recovery meetings that I was attending, because I was still doing, 7 meetings a week, along with 3 groups of counseling and individual counseling every week. So second shift was the only shift that would work for me. Now, second shift is also when the recovery meetings were generally the ones that I like to go to. So from 5 to 7 meetings, I went from maybe 3 to 5. I really focused on trying to get to as many meetings as possible because they were super beneficial to me. And, they were really important to not only me, but my recovery and where I wanted to take my life. So I'm working at this temp agency. I'm getting like $300 a week take home. Some weeks, good weeks, $330 a week. And I'm working on saving money to get my license back, to pay for insurance for my car every month. And I was scraping by, absolutely just scraping by. That I wasn't able to buy myself many things. My license had been suspended, and basically I was just waiting for my 6-month suspension to be up. Well, eventually it came up, but now I had to get insurance. I had to do things legally because I was in drug court, and you have to have insurance to drive in Wisconsin. So I was looking at insurance, and they said I needed a high-risk insurance, that it was going to be like $350 a month on this older car that I had. I think it was a 99 Volkswagen Jetta. But I really liked that car. Now the rent, electricity, cell phone bill, and everything was like $1,100, and maybe not that much, but it was basically all of my money was going to bills at that point. I remember one week that it was either I buy some milk or I buy a gallon of gas, and I chose the gas. But literally minutes after I chose the gas, the drug court coordinator called me and said, "Hey, we're going to the Salvation Army to get some food. Would you like to come?" And I said, "Absolutely." All my life I had never taken handouts like that, but I needed it at that point, and I was so grateful that I was able to get food. I was working with this guy in recovery, and he wasn't a temporary employee. He had been at this company for, 10 years or something. But every day I was like, "Man, I'm quitting this job." And he's like, "Nah, just keep doing it, keep coming. It'll turn out good." And even my sponsor, I remember I'm like, "I have this much money, these are my bills. I don't have enough money. What am I supposed to do?" And he's like, "Just have faith, man." And I was like, "Faith isn't gonna pay my bills." And but I took his advice. I had faith that everything was gonna work out, and It really did. Now, after, what was it, 6 or 8 months, February 2016, I think it was, I was hired at that foundry as an actual employee. So now I was able to get paid a lot more than I was making. I was able to save up a little money here and there. And I was able to attend like recovery events. Now, my first recovery event, this would have been June of 2015. My first recovery event was this camp out slash rafting. There I got a real taste of what recovery was like. There had been people from all over Wisconsin at this one campground that were genuinely happy. No drinking, no drugs. Me and my son had went there, and I had very little food, but we had enough. And I tell you, we ate like kings that weekend because there were so many people that were cooking and sharing their food and just being genuinely nice and, trying to share what was given to them, that generosity that was given to them when they first came into recovery. And I really appreciate those people and those times that I've been given. It's not about how much food I had that weekend. It was about the quality time that my son and I were able to have together. Back to when I first got my apartment. When I moved in with very little. My friend who I was living with before that gave me like the smallest TV. And I had a box full of random drug court papers and stuff. I think I was given an air mattress at that point too, and old couch he gave me. And me and my son spent the first night at that apartment eating a frozen pizza on the floor, watching some movie on this small TV, and that was one of the most fulfilling moments I've ever had. Where was I? Now drug court taught me a lot. Taught me a ton of stuff about myself, about recovery, about holding myself accountable, about following the rules and laws, and how all that can make me a better person. At that point, I didn't think I was a good before then, I didn't think I was a great person. I didn't think a whole lot of people truly liked me or cared for me. I thought there was something wrong with me. But drug court was able to show me to myself that I was worth something, that people did like me, and that I was worth living. So I'm working at this factory in town, and I'm able to afford stuff. Finally, I get to a year and a half clean, and my counselor says, "Well, what are you working for? What have you spent? Have you spent any money on yourself?" And I said, "Well, I'm able to drive now," and she's like, "No, that's all necessities." And so one of the first things I bought for myself at 18 months clean was a pair of shoes. And I don't know, it was just funny that I hadn't bought anything for myself for 18 months, and I was loving my life. Um, where do I go from here? I'll be right back. All right, so at some point, my counselor had given me an assignment, many assignments, tons of assignments, but one in particular that really helped me was she had me make a goals list of things I wanted. And on this list, I put big things. I wanted, a stable relationship. I wanted a house. I wanted a nice car. So she had suggested I started working on those things. Now, I was told to go check out this mortgage broker and see what I had to do to get a house. Now, they were pretty clear on this would be a teaching experience, that I was, try and take it as I was going to be able to learn something. So when I went there, she ran my credit. It was a 490, and I had to pay back like a $1,400 or $1,600 judgment I had against me from my party days when I ran into my friend's parents' garage with my car. So I had, and then she also said that I needed to start a credit card and start building my credit. And she also said, other things that are great to build credit are car loans, any type of loan like that. So it was a daunting task, to say the least, but I was able to get a secured credit card. So I was able to put this $300 that I had been saving for a kayak, I was able to put that into this secured credit card, and then I was able to buy my kayak that I wanted. And I was able to make the usual payments on like the credit card that I knew I was getting charged ridiculous amount of interest, but that's okay. I had the credit card to build credit. Fast forward a year or so, I'm able to get approved for a car loan. I had been making enough money that I was able to have as my friend joked about, a relapse fund. I had $1,000 set aside because when I was broke and I didn't have money, I told myself I was never going to be that broke again. So I had made a savings account with about $1,000 in it. Now, eventually I got approved for a car loan that was a really nice car. It was like a $11,000 loan or $12,000 loan. And I was able to make the payments and pay the ridiculous insurance that I still had to pay. I think that car was still like $300 a month, along with my car payment, which was like $300 a month as well. My job was really unfulfilling, to say the least. Some of the other things I had on my goal list was go back to school. Now I applied to, at the same company, I applied to this posting they had for electrician. So I go and try and take the test, and I did terrible on the math. I was actually decent in math, but I hadn't seen it in so long that I had done terrible at it. Now, I I was like, oh well, I'll keep going. I'll try again next year. Well, the next year comes around, and this time I just briefly brushed up on the math, and then I went and took the test, and I did really good. So then I was able to start the schooling and training for to be an electrician. Some of the things that were really great that happened were the recovery events that I was able to go to. Those definitely changed, my thinking, that because when I first got into recovery, my thoughts were, my life is over. This is going to be dumb. What am I supposed to do for fun? But these recovery events were able to change my thoughts about that, because not only did I have genuine fun, I was able to connect with other recovering addicts on a whole new level. Like, I've developed friendships all over the state of Wisconsin that are way more meaningful than any other friendships I've ever had before. So my whole attitude about living clean without the use of drugs or alcohol had absolutely changed. I was able to see some of the fruits of my labor, that working hard, having faith, and focusing on the next right thing and my recovery and not breaking the rules was doing to my life. Not only did I have friends, I had a good paying job, I was able to go to school, I'm building credit, and life was good. I still didn't have my son living with me, but I was really working on that. And I was trying to be a part of his life, even though he was living with my mom. I was trying to really show him that, I was worth his forgiveness, really. So fast forward a little bit, I'm able to graduate from drug court, and now, a lot of people, after they get done with drug court, they go back to the lifestyle that got them in drug court, go back to using drugs and alcohol, and that was not going to happen for me. I was not going to do that. So now I'm still going to counseling, even after graduating drug court. This time it's just once a week, and I continued that for like 6 months or so. I was working full time, more than 40 hours a week, and taking my son every other weekend when I had off. Really trying to build this crappy life that I had into something that I could be proud of. Okay, so in my recovery, I've had 3 relationships. One was a codependent relationship that was unhealthy. The second one ended up with her robbing a hotel and going to prison for like 7 years. And then my third relationship is the one I have now with my wife. So meeting my wife, I had seen her around. She also was in the drug court program. But one weekend at the camp, at a camp out, this was not the first camp out I had been to, but it was like the third maybe. I saw her going for a walk, and I ran up by her, and we went on a walk together. We go back at this huge campground, and we go back to this one field, and we see all these lightning bugs and this heat lightning, and it was kind of a cool moment, and we didn't kiss or nothing, we didn't hold hands or nothing, but we're able to start talking, Well, a month later we're dating. But yeah, so I had graduated drug court, I was building credit, working a ton of hours, going to recovery events, still attending a lot of meetings every week, and trying to really be involved in recovery. And I had went to third shift somewhere in there, going to school, and what else was I doing? Yeah, while going to school, I would listen to recovery speakers on YouTube. I was struggling to find a good one. But fast forward a little bit, and my relationship with my girlfriend is growing. We're spending a lot of time together. I had been done with drug court. She was getting ready to finish up, and I went back to the mortgage broker, and I was like, my credit's pretty good now. And I asked for a loan, and to my surprise, honestly, I thought it would be another learning situation. They said I was approved. I think my credit was a 580 by then, or 590, something like that, something pretty bad still. But I was able to get approved for the house loan. And the plan was that me and my girlfriend would move in together. So that's what we did. We found a house. We moved in together, and my son was able to move in with us. We got the house, I think we moved in August some year, 17, 18, August 18, and I was able to get my son to come live with us. So I had been clean 3.5 years, and I crossed off almost everything on my list of goals. I was left with, now what? Now what do I do? At this point, I would still go into a bunch of meetings, but I felt empty inside. I was sad, depressed feeling. I didn't know what to do, so eventually I figured out that I should probably ask for help. I met up with a guy from out of town, and you'll actually hear his story eventually here. But I met up with a guy from out of town, and we were able to work some recovery program, and man, did it help. Every time I met up with this guy, I was just like, this huge relief, He had been able to teach me quite a bit about myself and, where I want to be in my relationship, and my wife and I were able to grow. No, she wasn't my wife at that time, but I'm getting to that. So my life becomes pretty boring. I'm working, living at home with my wife and kid, and just living, we did go on vacations to recovery events, and and that might not sound like a lot of fun, but it's it's a ton of fun. We'd go on vacations to recovery events. I was going to school and trying to get my education and really trying to be a decent electrician at that point. She was working and graduating drug court. Moving forward from there, at the same camp out several years later, I decided I was going to marry her. So all weekend I had friends planning out, my friends and I were planning out how I was going to do it. And I knew the spot. You know, it was the spot with the lightning bugs and the heat lightning. And I had a friend take her out so I could set up the area and stuff. And when she got back, you know, I had another friend hand her something and follow this trail of pictures to this spot where I proposed. She said yes. So a little bit before that, you know, she wanted to have a baby. And originally, when I got into this relationship, I didn't want another kid. You know, my son was old. He's 15 now, but he wasn't that old then, but he was old. So I didn't really want to have another kid. I was eventually convinced, and I convinced myself that I should give her what she deserves. You know, she deserves to be a mom. And, you know, now we have a daughter. And I would have never thought to have another kid, but I'm so grateful we did. As far as the future and right now, where I'm at right now, you know, I'm working. I have a new job. I went to another company that pays a little better, and the time home is more important. I've made a new goals list, and it doesn't include anything that you can touch. It includes stuff like walk with purpose and quality family time, and you know, loving harder. I've been reading new books on my way to work, where I work is about an hour away. So I've been getting into audiobooks, which is really why I started this channel, is because those audiobooks and this undying urge that I need to help someone in recovery. What else have I been doing? What I really want to finish up and say is, you know, if you have a problem and you need help, there are people available. I'm available. There are people all over the world in recovery. I'll include some links after this video of not only my personal links for Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, but I'll include some organizations that can help you. If you know somebody who's struggling and you watch this video, I appreciate it. If you're a mother, father, son, a brother, sister, relative, or you just got a friend that's struggling, don't give up hope. Don't give up hope that recovery is possible. There is so much more to life than using drugs, and I never knew I wanted this life. You know, the life of my dreams would have been using drugs. However, now my thoughts are completely changed. I'm able to look at really what's important, that quality time with family, and trying to give back what was given to me. That's why I'm sharing my story. My plans for the future are to finish up my electrical automation degree, something like that, and possibly continue on to a 4-year education for electrical engineering, all sponsored by my job. I'll pay nothing out of pocket. I've been given some really great opportunities that I'm super grateful for. And yeah, like, follow, subscribe, share. Check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and that's all I have. Thanks.